Hello, everyone. All three of you from the looks of things, President Sunday here. How are we all doing today? This is going to be pretty casual. I'm going to be working all day long for today and tomorrow because I have today and tomorrow off. So I'm going to be finally getting that damned second nationalism video finished. The script is already half written. The skeleton's already made up. I've just been hopelessly waiting for that bloody microphone to come in. It's now almost 2 weeks late, so I think we're just going to have to bite the bullet and use the lousy snowball, and maybe someday I'll update the audio, but that's that. So basically what I'm going to do for the next, I don't know how long we're going to go for, maybe an hour or so, just going to play some chess and take your questions. If anybody wants to play, you can see on the screen what my username is, so feel free to DM me, just say, or just challenge me to a game, and I'll probably just accept it. But yeah, without further ado, let's go. I'm just gonna play random 30-minute games, and I'll sort of check the questions as we go. So if anybody has any questions about anything, or if you have move recommendations, by all means. I'm probably going to do very badly today just because I changed the color scheme so it would look cool, and I'm not used to multitasking like this. All right. No, I'm not a racist yet. Sorry. Yeah, I should be answering questions, shouldn't I? What's my profession? That's an excellent question, working prole. So, I've actually mentioned this in my talk with McManus. I mean, obviously, work for a lot of people is down, so I'm on CERB at the moment. But my official job, when I'm not doing research, is as a house cleaner, as a matter of fact. So if you've ever seen that movie, The Shape of Water, that's what I do. It's pretty grueling. It's not exactly like oh shoot, that was a mistake. It's not exactly like janitorial work per se, but it's still cleaning. So you like go into mansions and you tidy up bathrooms and kitchens, and it's all very tiring. I mean, it's satisfying too, but it's not exactly what I want to do for the rest of my life. But it sort of pays the bills. What is my YouTube? Tangy asks, what is my YouTube profile picture based on? That is an excellent question. Actually, back in the day when I was sort of in apologetic circles, like in around 2010 or so, I had a friend who was a fantastic artist, and she had done paintings of a few friends of mine, and just as a joke, I suppose, I asked her if she would do a painting of President Sunday from the novel The Man Who Was Thursday. And she, for some reason, I don't know why, incorporated a photo of myself. And so here we go. We've got this weird, demonic-looking caricature of my own face as my avatar, which is a little bit strange, but it's kind of grown on me. All right. What game are we playing here? Oh, I also did landscaping for a little bit, which paid a lot better. But and honestly, it's funny. So with landscaping, I was like, the reason why I'm not actually in an academic job is because, I mean, there's a few reasons. One of which is I was just stupid and I didn't network or anything. I just focused on studying, so I really had no clue uh, what to do when it came to all of that. Getting into grad school and setting myself up that way. So I'm in a position where I think I'm a half decent political theorist, um, but I'm not very likely to be a political theorist in any official capacity for some time. But it's all right. I'm actually kind of enjoying this right now. There's a level of freedom you get just doing stuff by yourself than you wouldn't get in grad school. Now, I mean, there's opportunities as well, probably way more so than the amount of freedom that you give up. But one of the things that happens when you're in grad school is you're forced to really hone in on specific topics, and that can have the effect of really stifling your education in a lot of ways, which is not at all an argument against going into grad school, but I mean, there are trade-offs. But yeah, as I was saying, like, it's funny. So landscaping, you'll sometimes spend like 8 hours in like 30-degree weather hauling rocks and things like that. That is much less exhausting than the house cleaning. It is so much easier. It's just like I'm fairly tall for one thing, so like when you're inside like a shower, for example, cleaning that out, that can be just grueling, the heat. So, I mean, I'm a first generation student, so I had no advice going forward until I was very late in and just absolutely worked to death in other ways. Oh, it's my turn. What am I doing? Okay, what happened here? What did I miss? Oh, has it been my turn the whole time? I am so absent-minded today. Okay, let's... Screw it. Let's do this. Sasha Kravenko asks, what was your political journey? What ideologies did you hold and are holding now? That's an excellent question. I can say with some concrete sense what sort of ideologies I used to hold. It's very hard to say what I hold now for the simple reason that... Oh, why thank you. For the simple reason that as I've sort of grown, as just give me 1 second here. I'm forming a plan. Okay. Take my queen, make my day. Oh, shoot. Oh, that was so dumb. Yeah. I never said I was good, guys. I just like it. Oh, that was embarrassing. Right, so political journey. Cringy. Cringy is all hell. So my political awakening, if you will, happened when I was in high school. That would have been around 2010. And I was interested in, well, I was just getting interested in apologetics because I had had sort of an existential crisis in my teen years, and I suddenly got interested in arguments for the existence of God. And that sort of, thinking about that kind of thing got me sort of into the orbit of sort of the new atheist apologetics wars of the early 2010s. And like, it's funny, originally, like, I wasn't even going to go to college. My original plan, if you want to call it that, when I finally did decide to go to university, was to go into an economics program, because I had no idea what political science was at the time. Yeah, so okay, so this is kind of interesting, actually. So I actually started off in very much the same space as people like the distributists did. I was a young Christian guy who wasn't really a very competent philosophical thinker, but um, I had dipped my toes into what I didn't realize at the time was political theory. So I read Machiavelli in high school for the hilarious reason that I had been a big reader of Harry Potter, and I was really interested by the character of Dumbledore, and the Wikipedia article for Dumbledore characterized him as a Machiavellian character. So I was like, oh, that sounds cool. What's that? So I found the prints in my in my high school's library, I should say, which is amazing that they actually had that. Most high school libraries don't have stuff like that. So I read the prints in high school, and I was like, oh, so I started reading a bunch of strategic texts, and I sort of made a bit of an identity, sort of an adolescent identity as a kind of Christian strategist. So there are all these apologists who are philosophers who are doing stuff that's really interesting, but I'm not really good at that. I can do stuff in strategy, and it's only me and my friend Shruggy at the time, actually, I don't know how much he wants me to go into this, but we've known each other for a while. We used to just spend a lot of long nights just kind of walking around at night strategizing about things like that, about how to conquer the world for the church or something ridiculous like that. And as I matured as a thinker, I started to realize how silly that was, for a number of reasons. One of which is that I was vastly overestimating my own level of knowledge on these things. Like to be strategizing about something like this in the first place, well, there's an inherent dishonesty to it. You're assuming, first of all, that this position that you haven't necessarily justified philosophically, you have good cause to start engaging in deceptive behavior to promulgate it. And I mean, sure, people in other ideological groups do that as well, but I don't see that as an excuse for doing that ourselves. I think we need to be honest about what we do and don't know. And so, I mean, actually, it's kind of that's one of the things I find really funny about my relationship with reactionaries on YouTube. Is it's like I'm looking in a mirror, like 10 years ago, and it's so weird that these people just haven't grown up. But yeah, so right now, I wouldn't even say I wouldn't necessarily ascribe an ideology to myself. I'm sure if I did some self-reflection, I would find that I fall into some group or other. But I mean, generally right now, I'm in sort of a long process of sort of reevaluating everything and just going through, trying to think through, why do I value the things that I do? Are there good reasons for valuing the things that I do? Are some of my values suspect? Do they rely on ideas that, if I examined them, I wouldn't take them seriously or respect them as much? So that's why, like, when people ask me, like, what am I politically, I honestly don't know. And I mean that in a very specific sense. I haven't made the determinations that I would need to make in order to throw my lot in with a particular political party. Now, I have sympathies and I'll voice them. I'm very much against the looting and the destruction in the States, but at the same time, I've made a video on this recently. It's very hard for the government to critique them because it's more or less come out that they've been negligent in making sure that their law enforcement isn't essentially engaging in wanton acts of murder. So it's a bit of a mess. On that, like, I'm not an expert on this kind of thing at all, but it seems to me, from my layman's perspective, that the only thing that can be really done at this point is wait for it to run its course. Yeah. Anyways, I'm rambling now, so I'm going to move on to the next question. Thank you for that, Sasha. Did I miss anything? No, I don't think so. No, I don't think so. Oh, Mike has an interesting comment. So just so you know, I was the bleeding heart that wanted to save the world in your DMs. I figured out you were right. Oh, I see. Yeah, okay. You're the one who talked to me on Twitter. That's kind of interesting. All right. Time to play more chess badly. What are we going to do about this pickle? Because we are in a pickle, aren't we? I'm going to do this. Let's see what happens. Pardon my drinking sounds. I'm having tea. So what do you guys think of the riots? I've been a little bit aloof to a lot of this. American politics is not my forte. What do we want to do here? What a pickle. I'm going to put you there. No, I'm in a pickle. I'm not having a pickle. Pickled eggs, however, are fantastic. Oh, what happened? What'd you do? Oh, you cur. Oop. I could have queened. What? Where? Wait. Hang on. What are you talking about? I could have queened. Tomas, I'm going to want some clarification here. You say I could have queened. Where is that? Take rook, then knight the queen. Hang on. Okay, let's take a look at this. So I'm assuming we were here. Take rook. Where can I take a rook? Am I stupid? What am I missing here? Okay, so Thomas says rook. Okay, rook to b3 knight. So back here. Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, yeah. Okay, so, right. So I'm assuming what I would do in this case is like that. I don't know. Be patient with me. My spatial reasoning is not that good at this time of the morning. All right. Where are we now? Okay. Well, we are doing badly in this game, aren't we? Very badly indeed. I shouldn't be trading pieces, but I'm distracted. Yeah, Mike, don't. Mike, I was getting your. I was thinking about your messages on Twitter. I think with these kinds of things, you really need to just be patient and be willing to work like small steps within a very long time scale. Nobody's actually a hero in politics. It's just it's a guarantee for disaster, personally, and you got to take care of yourself and yeah, just be patient. Just because not everybody is on board with you right away doesn't mean you can't make a difference or do something important or valuable. All right. I'm almost tempted to resign this game. I'm doing so badly. All right. Sasha Kravenko says, also, have you heard of Cheiron? I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. The Mexican Cheiron, the Mexican village that threw out all politicians and the police. No, I haven't. I would love for some clarification on that. Maybe I'll look into that actually. Hang on. Cheiron. Okay. So, wait, politicians and police. That's interesting. BBC article. Well, it's from 2016. This is old. Oh, I see. Okay. So in Mexico, organized crime reaches everywhere, even to the smallest village, except for one small town in the state of Michoacan. Led by local women, the people of Cheiron rose up to defend their forest from armed loggers and kicked out police and politicians at the same time. Okay, so this isn't in reaction to anything recent. Okay. Carl asks, what is the goal of your channel? That is an excellent question. I think, honestly, maybe you saw my reading list from a little while back. As I said earlier, I'm a first-generation student, and like for myself, I remember, like initially, when I applied to the local college, I went into I was signed up for economics, and I only decided to go into political science after I realized how incredibly boring economics would be, and that I had absolutely no passion for it. And as a kid, I had basically no idea of what my options were, what different kinds of things there were to study, and I just really had no concept of what was there. And a large part, like a big turning point for me was I was very lucky, and I had a really good AP literature teacher in high school, and he got me interested in reading actual literature. And whoa! I just dropped my mouse off the desk. Hang on one second. Amazing. And he had an interesting way of teaching. So a lot of teachers will give you, no, don't leave the site. A lot of teachers will give you reading assignments, and you'll have to like write reports and things like that. This professor didn't do that, or this teacher, I should say, didn't do that. This teacher, like for example, we would talk about, is it Tennyson's Ulysses? And we talk about a poem, sort of about Ulysses going on this or proposing this final journey with his crew in his old age. And instead, or I think, no, we weren't talking about that. We were talking about the Iliad. Right. And instead of just giving us sort of reading assignments, we would also get reading assignments as well. But most of the class would be about his own adventures in the Mediterranean. So he'd talk about how one time he went to, oh, thank God. Guys, we might actually pull through. All right. There, see, I knew I was building up all that karma for something. Okay, we need to do this carefully. We've been given a gift. We need to not waste it. Guys, help me out. What do I need to do? I'll get back to what I was saying in a second, but we need to figure out how to beat this guy. So a part of me wants to go here to put him into check immediately. Yes, okay, so this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go check, take the knight. All right, fingers crossed. Okay. not exactly what I wanted, but we'll still force him to his knights. That's good. Right, so he would talk about going shark fishing in the Mediterranean and things like that. So he'd be on a boat with his guide, and the guide he'd be like on like these crystal blue waters, sunny out, and he'll have like his fishing line out, and suddenly he'll get a giant tug, and he wasn't shark fishing, he was just fishing, and his guide with this deep like Russian accent would just go like, "Stand back, you have shark," and things like that, and it just got you. It made it interesting, and it really shouldn't need to be made interesting because this stuff is inherently interesting by itself. But all of this stuff has been made quaint and dry in the way in which they're popularly talked about, like literature, things like that. Like Paradise Lost, for example. You look at all this quaint Christian artwork, like evangelical artwork about angels as like these weird, effeminate people in. Okay, where do we go here? In like gowns with harps and things like that. It's like, no, absolutely not. Paradise Lost is about a war between beings of like the scale of the Michael Bay Transformers, and that's actually how he described it to us. It's like, look, this is, you think of like Megatron and Starscream when you're thinking of Beelzebub and Satan, and it gives you a reason to learn for yourself because you're actually interested in this stuff. And I think that's really important. So, like, long story short, with my own channel, I'm trying to basically try and do what that professor did for me at one point. So, yeah, I just want to make political theory and literature and things like that interesting. One of my strategies for that is I look at things that are already interesting. Like I've done Dead Space, things like that. I did Paradise Lost recently, and I try to sort of poke at reasons for like how these illustrate actually really interesting things that have sort of a bearing on reality or on like serious thought and whatnot. So, and I'm limited, of course, because I'm not like a polymath or anything. I've got a limited range of competencies, but just try to make. I just want to try to make the stuff that took me a long time to get sort of more accessible, so other people can benefit from it, and sort of I get some value out of that. I don't know. It's also just fun, honestly. Yeah, sorry for that meandering thing. Let's go for some more questions here. Have I thought about going into law? Actually, when I was in my first couple of years in political science, I was in this group of friends. Oh, God damn it. We were doing so well, too. I was in a group of friends that were all sort of intent on, because the college political science wasn't really political science. It was, let's look at the Canadian Constitution and how the Canadian government's structured. Let's look at some sort of topical political issues that are going on in Canada. Things like that. And yeah, so we like the most exciting thing was to go into law. It's when I hit third year that I took a class on medieval and what was it? It was ancient and medieval political thought, and it was my first actual introduction to political theory proper. So it was a really intense course, and that's one of my favorite professors of all time, just by sheer chance. But in that one semester, we read Plato's Republic, Aristotle's Politics, St. Augustine's City of God, Aquinas' Treatise on Law, which was, I believe, a selection from Volume 2 of the Summa. We are going to lose this so badly. Of the Summa. Oh, don't do that. Be nice. And then laughably at the end of it, an abridged version, mind you, but we had like a week to do the Muqaddim of Ibn Khaldun. I'm not entirely sure why he tried to fit that in there. I think it's because he wanted to not give the impression that all medieval philosophy was specifically Christian, because it's not. That's true. But at the same time, the Muqaddimah, if you've ever seen it, is a massive text. So it's you would never finish that in a week, much less. I mean, you could probably do multiple semesters on it. It's huge. Same with Plato's Republic, honestly, but you can reasonably read that in a month. This was a survey course, of course, so it was 300A, and it's interesting. So the 300 series used to be a single course that was a complete survey of political philosophy. So you would do from Plato all the way through to I guess Kant, Marx, John Stuart Mill, people like that. Maybe even Gandhi later on. But it was broken up, and the result is that you can go through an entire political science degree from year one to the end of your PhD without having read a huge number of these thinkers. And yeah, it's just bad. I ended up taking all three just because it mattered to me that I did this stuff well. But yeah, let's do another game. This is not going well. Oh, actually, I should cancel. And does anybody want to play? If anybody wants to play, you can see my name here. Just DM me and just challenge me to a game, and I'll play you. I'll give you like 5 minutes to do that if you want. Yeah. So what was I saying? Right. Political science. So yeah, so you could go through an entire degree from the beginning of your bachelor's to the end of a PhD without having read Plato, without having read Aristotle, without having read Augustine, which I mean is bad, but that's sort of tolerable. But you can also have not read any Marx. You can have not read any John Stuart Mill, any Locke, any Hobbes. Hobbes is a big one. And that's borne out by the fact that when you actually get into these grad seminars, they are... Oh, here we go. We got a challenge. Is that the person we were just playing? No, it's not. All right. 10 minutes? Come on. Now I have to focus on the game. Right, you get all these PhDs and master's students who have absolutely no knowledge of their own discipline. It's actually astounding. Like I remember being in a seminar and this person had nothing to say about Locke because it was a survey of sort of the main line of political theory. And bastard. And this one student had absolutely nothing to say except that Locke was racist. It's like, okay, that's really all you got? We've read like 200 pages of this guy. But which one of you is Skydroid, by the way? Am I playing one of you right now? Yeah. I'm gonna die. Yeah, I can see this coming. What do I want to do? This is what I want to do. 2 for 2. There we go. We'll call it even. Yeah, so this is actually really hard, answering questions while playing chess at the same time. I seriously overestimated myself. Let's see if there's any more questions. John Doe, what opening was that? I have no idea. I'm a very casual player. I'm not terrible, but I'm not good either. I'm playing terribly right now, to be sure, but I'm generally not bad. Yeah. No, it's not true. I didn't sacrifice my bay for a knight. First of all, my queen was gonna go either way because I had managed to get her trapped in there, like the absolute novice that I am. When he put his bishop here, there was nowhere for me to go. If I went here, I'd be dead. Oh, what did you just get? Stop that! I'm trying to demonstrate something. If I went here, I'd be dead. Went here, I'd be dead. Dead, dead, dead. So what I did was I took, and so I got a knight and a bishop. And trading a queen for a knight is not very good. Trading a queen for a knight and a bishop, I can sort of live with. Sorry, I'm just reading questions here. Any predictions on what crazy thing will happen next in the crazy year of 2020? We are already halfway through it. Well, what have we got? We have the killer bees. We have the killer plague. We had a tornado just a couple last week, in fact. On Vancouver Island, we had a tornado, the first one in 50 years, apparently. I was just alarmed to hear that we had tornadoes at all. Very tiny one, mind you. You probably could have stood in it and be fine, but it's still a nay-nay. Don't like tornadoes. So that depends. I don't know how late in this game of Jumanji we're in, so fingers crossed. Ho ho. I see a tactic. I am going to hurt whoever this player is in this next move. Or am I? Yes, I think I am. Boom. Shoom. Charlie Adams asks, President Sunday, what religion are you? I am Christian, but I do want to put some caveats on that. So obviously I don't really do any apologetics content. I do talk about Christian ethics a lot when I debate people, for the simple reason that in my reading of history, at least, we owe a lot of we owe a good majority of our shoot, what do I want to do here? I guess I'm going to do this just to save my knight. Right, so I don't talk about it very much for the simple reason that while I know that I'm ethically informed by Christianity, I don't have compelling arguments for why somebody else should believe in it. Now, that being said, I do think there are good reasons to believe in it nonetheless. But they're the sorts of reasons that, like it's a personal judgment thing. Like I'm very, like one of the reasons is it's very amenable to a lot of philosophical thinking that I find rather compelling. It's the sort of values that emerge from it seem to be a bolt from the blue, and they're difficult to account for historically. Now, again, like I could be very wrong about this, my history on this isn't fantastic. So I'm just trying to not, I don't know. I guess I'm a bit shell-shocked from my time in that sort of apologetic sphere. I just lost my night, damn it. When I would actively take part in berating people for not taking these things seriously, but the truth is I don't have any certainty about this either. So I guess it sounds so wishy-washy, but I guess culturally or ethically Christian, but I'm not sort of ideologically Christian in the sense that I let it frame how I receive my concepts and things like that. Okay, what do I want to do here? That's what I want to. No, I don't want to do that. That's bad. Let's free up my bishop. Right, okay, that's what I'm going to do. Got it. Okay, I've got a plan. My plans have not worked out well so far, but we'll see. So we do owe a lot of our ethics to Christianity. We also owe a lot of them to the non-Christian Greeks. What we have today is largely, as far as I can tell, sort of a chimera of sort of Greek sort of concepts in terms of like how we distinguish between different types of person, the different parts of communities that are more or less considered to be essential, things like that. What are you doing? You were doing so well. Why'd you put your queen there? You weren't in any danger, you fool. Okay, am I missing something? No, I don't think so. I think that was just a gaffe. Nice. Score. What was I saying? I was meandering. Shoot, let me look at that question again. That'll remind me. Right, yeah. Okay, so we get our political concepts and our concepts of sort of the different, not meaning necessarily in a sexual sense, but the different genders of humanity, things like that, largely from Greek political thought, specifically sort of post-Aristotelian political thought, largely filtered to us through Muslim philosophers and later Christian philosophers like Aquinas. So, I mean, we're kind of a hodgepodge in a lot of ways. We're not just, our ethics aren't just Christian, to be sure. Decidedly not so. In fact, I think it's really borne out in the way in which a lot of political thought from the so-called Christian world, or the Western world, let's say, largely leads us to actions that are themselves, seemingly, at least on the surface, directly contrary to what Christ taught. So, yeah, give all that you have to the poor kind of thing. I mean, how many times have you seen a reactionary say, like, well, look, we're not allowed to kill to defend our people or our culture, things like that. And I mean, what you're seeing there is a manifestation of a perfectly respectable train of thought in Greek thinking, but not out of the cultural heritage of Christianity or liberalism, which is itself largely a product of Christianity as well. If you read Locke's letter concerning toleration, it's almost entirely referencing Christian doctrine. So, in fact, it's entirely concerned with whether or not the church can compel belief in certain creeds. So, yeah. Oh, I think I'm going to win this one. I have that feeling. Yes. Haha. Should I do it? Yeah, screw it. Let's just end this. Yeah, that was an extreme gaff. I've done that too, though, and this is a faster game. I mean, I lost my queen early on in a similarly bad way. I do that all the time, especially when you're distracted. I historically my chess score goes up and down based on my sort of mental state. So I have periods where I'm like in the 800s, and then others where I zoom back up to like 1,100. I think I'm close to 1,100 right now on my 30-minute game, which is what I usually play. But yeah. Boom, boom. We're just cleaning up now. You are not surviving this, my friend. Unless it gets a stalemate, which is possible. I've been known to fall for those. All right, let's go back to the questions. I don't know if I answered that last question. I apologize. This is so distracting, this chess game. And oh, I am playing Sasha. Okay. What have we got here? Charlie Adams asks, thoughts on what has become of the skeptic community? John Doe, are you asking for my name? It's just President Sunday with no space. Caps on the P and the S, if you wanted to play. You're welcome. Just challenge me to a game. Sorry, Charlie Adams asked, what do I think of what thoughts on what has become of the skeptic community? That's difficult to say. I mean, the skeptic community is pretty broad. I don't really keep tabs on a lot of them. I don't keep tabs on the Amazing Atheist. I sort of Armored Skeptic is a bit of a guilty pleasure of mine, but largely because I find his spirit science ones just kind of upbeat and funny. Man, what a waste of effort spirit science is. Like seriously, you look at like the gorgeous production values of that thing, and it's all in the service of. It's so absurd. It's almost hard to call it lies. It's just malicious nonsense. But the aesthetic is gorgeous. It's a shame it's in the service of that. Okay, but skeptic community. I mean, it was always a very sterile thing, wasn't it? The skeptic community only had content, only had things to say so long as, I'm running out of time. Shoot, I should stop talking and play. It only had things to say so long as it had sort of a God, I can't even think right now. So long as it had ridiculous people like Ken Ham and whatnot to react to. And then once that sort of went out of vogue, they just didn't do anything interesting again. You had people like Evil Ben Stiller, Sam Harris, who had nothing to do at the end of the day, but sort of screw it, we can do this. Who had nothing to do at the end of the day, but just go into the anti-Muslim culture war stuff. And I mean, I'm not a Muslim, obviously. I have criticisms of, well, not criticisms per se, but there are reasons why I don't find Islam as a why. Okay, there's a reason why I don't find the claims of Muhammad, let's say, as particularly compelling. But I don't know, the stuff that he was doing just didn't strike me as particularly worthwhile. Yeah, I think it's just showing the fact that it had really nothing to say at the end of the day. Like, what is skepticism? Skepticism is literally just good game, by the way, Sasha. Thank you for that. What have we got here? Somebody challenge me? No. Yeah, feel free to challenge me to a game, guys. What have we got here? No. Okay. I have one. Anybody else? Oh boy, I've got a few here. I'll do Jack Schwartz because that's on top, and I'll play someone else next. I think we'll probably do like 2 more games and then we'll call it, because this is going on to an hour now. I don't know how people manage these like 4-hour long streams. Like the academic agent will do these 3-hour long, just tedious streams, and I'm exhausted after an hour. I mean, credit to him, he's got stamina for that at least. Not for doing actual research, unfortunately, but what can you do? Yeah, I mean, so just to finish off on the skeptic community, like I had a chat with Chud Logic, or not, sorry, not with Chud Logic. I had a chat with Kraut actually on a Chud Logic stream. I forget what the name of the discussion was, but it was on political violence, among other things, and the future of BreadTube and things like that. And he just seemed so dull, like he was just bored of everything. It's like, how can you be bored of everything? There's so much going on. I just find them tedious these days. They don't have anything interesting to say. It's like, yeah, okay, sure, I guess, but believing in astral spirits and whatnot is dumb. Thank you, Mr. Most of them aren't even scientists or whatever. It's just boring. I just find them boring, and they don't have any. They have no real respect for. I mean, look, like these guys will go on about how like they were all on like the free speech bandwagon and things like that, and I have all credit to them, but they have no respect for where that actually comes from. Like, again, like these they mock people who make more or less the same types of arguments as John Locke, on the same basis. And I mean, sure, some things that Locke said are probably silly if you look at them closely enough. But like, come on. Like, that's basically all I have to say. Just come on, guys. Just try. Do something interesting. Yeah. There's just not a lot to say. They're just dull. Locke's Logos had a comment on that. The atheist community has become a festering internet movement. They haven't changed since 2012. If anything, the apologists have stepped up their game. I haven't been keeping tabs on the apologists, so it would be interesting to see what that is. If I have an issue, and one of the reasons why I've stopped sort of paying attention to a lot of apologetics, largely, there's a couple of reasons. One is that people in like the William Lane Craig sphere, they rely on argumentation that while it's a good sort of punchback to arguments that Christian belief is simply silly, it doesn't do a lot of work. Pardon me. It doesn't do a lot of work towards getting someone who doesn't already have a personal investment in believing in those things to make the move to believe those things in the first place. And I'm sort of at a point where I'm sort of confident enough, or at the very least, I guess, maybe just tired enough to be willing to kind of countenance arguments that actually challenge my sort of religious presuppositions. I'm playing very badly now because I'm distracted. I apologize. So I just find that stuff kind of boring, and I find a lot of apologetics relies on platitudes, basically. So, I mean, I would be interested to see if they're doing something interesting. I just don't find kind of that whole metaphysical focus to be that compelling to me anymore. There's certainly a place for it. It's certainly important in certain respects. But at the same time, it's just not what really occupies my attention these days. What do you do? Kyle Eaton asks, what do you do when you feel your mind is too open and you start ascribing fearful frameworks that fit the narrative of reality, but with absolutely no knowledge of being true? Can you reword that? That sounds like an interesting question, but I'm not sure I understand what you're asking, Kyle. If you could ask that question again, that'd be great. Locke's Logos recommends Inspiring Philosophy. I'm assuming that's a YouTube channel. I'll give that a look. Oh, religious analyst, not an apologist. Okay, that's kind of interesting. Can we get trans rights from President Sunday? Trans rights are not derived from President Sunday, but absolutely, sure. Trans rights from President Sunday. There you go. You got it. It would be kind of awkward if I didn't, seeing as it seems like a good portion of my mods are trans as well. By the way, funnily enough, most of the trans people I know are more conservative than, well, in a lot of ways, a lot of the conservatives who have a deep issue with them. So, funny how that works, isn't it? What's my opinion on the incel question? Depending on what you mean, like I don't think about incels very much. I suppose, like maybe you wanted my opinion on incels. I mean, these are people who just really have an impoverished view of what human relationships are like. Like they're still in that kind of adolescent mode, and I understand where they're coming from, especially if you're coming out of an environment like, I mean, especially for people who were growing up sort of when I was younger. You have a really twisted situation in which sex is simultaneously something extremely taboo, but also extremely defining of your worth as a person. So all of our children's cartoons were obsessed with, I mean, bluntly, with sex, like with relationships, things like that, and a lot of people just didn't know what to do with that. So you had a lot of people going through, like growing up in a period where you have this massive proliferation of, like a massive sexualization of media, things like that, and like you're in a point in life where you're very hormonally compromised, among other things, and it's like you have no idea what to do with it. So I mean, I feel sympathy for them on one level, but on the other, these people just don't grow up. Like they're obsessed with, oh, damn it, you jerk. They're obsessed with having a sexual relationship with a female. Period. That's literally like what they want out of a relationship, out of a romantic relationship, is just literally just that. I can't imagine. I can't imagine ascribing to myself an identity based on that. It just seems sad. It's. I mean, I can understand why people would be frustrated by not having success and finding a romantic partner if they're in a point in their lives where they feel like they really want one. But at the same time, it's like that can't be it. Yeah, I don't know. It's the whole thing depresses me. I don't think it'll go away. I think I don't think the response to them has been appropriate. I think these are people who are very confused and who have basically been underserved by the communities in which they've been raised. Okay, what are you doing? You sneaky devil. I hate it when people do this, but yoink. Yeah, these people just need to do something interesting with their lives and not obsess about it. Here's the thing, right? If these people were, this is the grand irony of the incel thing. If these people just spent their time like doing something, like just read books, become an expert on some topic, do a job really well, get money, and go do some kind of interesting sport or something. It's difficult for some people because, God, I know doing anything that costs money is difficult. But like if these people spent time sort of developing themselves as persons, as people, they would have a much easier time finding a partner because they themselves would be interesting. A major problem with these people is they're just boring because this is all they're interested in. So Yeah. Um, I yeah. So I'll just leave it there. I don't really want to talk about incels that much. They just depress me. Did Kyle Eaton update his question at all? Oh, I see. Okay, so I'm going to try and interpret this based on what Sash has said. So, what do you do when you feel your mind is too open that your brains fall out? I don't like that phrase. Or that saying. I don't like that saying. Don't let your mind be so open that your brains fall out. For the simple reason that, well, let's think about what's being said there, right? Um, don't don't be too flexible in what you will allow yourself to think, um, or else what you'll be arrested in some way, um, in the sense of like uh, your ability to reason generally will be compromised. I don't think so. I mean, I think there is something to be said for the fact that, like, look, at some point in your intellectual development, you're in a period where you are just learning, where you haven't sort of landed somewhere yet. You're still just learning, and I think that's where I am right now. Um, if you just put a wall up and say, I will not consider X, Y, and Z as amenable to any kind of scrutiny, um, I mean, you're putting an artificial cap on what you can know. In all likelihood, maybe not. Maybe you know everything. I know that I don't know everything, so I'm a little bit skeptical of that. But yeah, I think you just need to be careful. Bluntly, you just need to work really hard and do your due diligence. And like if you can't be certain of something in the moment, um, that's okay. Just uh, just think more and learn more before you start trying to teach other people. That's all. I mean, most of us aren't in a position where we have to make split-second decisions based on complex political issues, uh, and just sort of settle these complex questions right now. So I don't know. I just think that way of thinking is poorly motivated. I'm not ascribing anything to you, Kyle. I think we need to allow ourselves to be transformed by what we learn, and sometimes that will entail that a lot of things that we value don't make sense anymore, because sometimes our values are based on misperceptions. We overstress something, or we fetishize something, or what have you. So yeah, Carl put it well. Aren't people always learning? I think that I will never reach a level where I say I know in such and such a topic. Yeah, sure, that's fair. Um, and yeah, of course, there are points in your life where you have to make decisions and you have to sort of make a best guess and run with that. In fact, I would argue that's largely the only thing that we do when we make decisions, because most things in life aren't certain, if any. Um, but you can do that and sort of be cognizant of what you're doing, right? Like that doesn't like the fact that you're not done learning doesn't mean you have to not make decisions. It may require you to be brave when you make decisions. And I worry sometimes that a lot of people who sort of employ this thinking where you can't be too open-minded or else it will limit your ability to function. I wonder if they're not doing this so they can sort of allow their pre-existing ideas to sort of carry the burden of responsibility for them, so that they don't have to make judgments by themselves. But I don't know. I don't know these people's minds. It's, yeah. Okay, so you clarified your question, Kyle. How do you deal with theoretical frameworks that fit universal recursion? I'm just going to Google that quickly. Universal recursion. Oh, mathematical logic. Yeah, I'm not going to figure this out in time. I see what you're saying. Okay, so like theories of everything. How do you deal with theoretical frameworks that fit universal recursion that coincidentally would explain everything if they were true? It causes great fear for me and strips my agency. I mean, our agency is within a context, right? I don't think there's something to be afraid of. I think where this really becomes a problem is when we think of our agency as something meriting either condemnation or praise. And we want to be able to be either praised or condemned. We want to be able to say that the people who do things that are evil are really evil for it, or that the things that we do that are good, or the things that we feel that are important are really important. We want them to have some meaning. We want them to have, because we know that we're mortal. We know that we're going to run out of time to experience these things and sort of keep them going at a personal level and alive. So, and maybe I'm speaking out of place here. Maybe that's not true for other people, but yeah. So that's tricky. For myself, like I used to have some difficulty with this too. I'm going to be honest, but for myself, I stopped worrying about that a little while ago. Mostly because it ultimately doesn't change our actual experience. I know that sounds lame, but I mean, like, look, it's kind of like the obsession with finding an immaterial basis for the soul, right? What you really want is a basis for saying that the soul is eternal and can't be deleted, because if it's or mutated in some essential way, because if it can be, well, that all of these sort of things that form our identity and things that we value that are predicated on certain things staying constant, well, those all go out the window. So I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this question a disservice, because I'm a little bit muddled on that just at this moment while I'm playing chess at the same time. So maybe write that question down and DM me, because I might have a more substantial answer at some point. But I know Jalma Bayorn would have very interesting things to say on that, so I should run that by them. Lux Logos, non-serious question. What type of music do you like? I like a lot of different kinds of music. I like I really like sort of 90s era sunny video game or anime music. I think my favorite one is just called Earth Activity from a PS2 game called Stella Deus. I know that's so lowbrow, but it just, I don't know, it makes me happy on the inside. Otherwise, I like there's a Japanese composer called Takashi Yoshimatsu. I think I have that right. Takashi Yoshimatsu, and he has some really gorgeous piano symphonies. I'm not a music person. I don't know what these are called. But yeah, check him out. He's great. And Bach's Toccata and Fugue is a personal favorite for some reason. Probably because I grew up watching Fantasia. So, does feminism bear any blame for incels? No, I don't think so. Well, I mean, in a sense, right? If we all had arranged marriages or whatnot, then there'd be fewer incels, sure. But I don't think the incel phenomenon as such can be laid at the feet of feminists, and then you'd have to be more particular about who you mean by that. Which is not to say nothing can be laid at the feet of feminists, but I don't think that would be fair. What else have we got here? Yeah, just to go back to Kyle's question briefly. I mean, like, yeah, so you're worried about agency. I mean, ultimately, our choices are going to be, like, our agency is referring to our ability to make genuine choices and decisions, so that our existence as sort of thinking beings or decision-making beings with moral significance means something. But I mean, like, everything we do is going to be scaffolded within some kind of framework, right? So, like our decisions are always going to be limited by the range of things that exist in the world. There will always be a limit to the amount of choices that we can make based upon the rules by which the context in which we find ourselves, in this case our universe, are governed. For God's sake, like there's that whole there's that Library of Babel thing, which is based off of the Borges short story. Let's see if I can find it. And basically what it is, it's a simulated library comprised of every conceivable arrangement of letters and figures. And so within it, you will find every single novel, for instance, that could possibly be written. That doesn't by itself obviate our capacity to write those novels as legitimate expressions of meaning. It's just because the code that we're using to formulate those works in, they obviously have a limited there's a limited number of ways in which you can reshuffle the same deck of cards. Now here's the thing, there are more letters in English, there are more figures and characters and combinations and words that we can use than there are cards in a deck of cards. And look up, go onto YouTube and look up Hud Hudson on the fine-tuning argument, or if you want to just get a shorthand, look up something called It All Starts with a Deck of Cards, just to get a sense of how monumentally large the number of possible arrangements of cards in a single deck of cards you can get. It's actually pretty mind-blowing. The talk is more mind-blowing than the thing, I think, but it's worth watching. Hud Hudson's great. He's an unrecognized gem. Lily Voidtooth asks, do you think your views on religion influences your political thoughts or vice versa? If so, how? Yes, very much so, and it would take a while to actually get into that in detail. But if we want to attack this strictly from the political science angle, I'm obviously, from my recent videos, a pretty big reader of Hannah Arendt. Well, Hannah Arendt, in her book, The Human Condition, makes heavy use of a little-known, well, now little-known, once was actually quite big, French anthropologist called Numa Denise Fustel de Coulanges. And that's where she largely gets her understanding of classical politics, classical Greek politics. And he gives a very compelling sort of genealogy of the household and polis structure of ancient Greek society as essentially emergent from a household cultic arrangement. In a serious sense, we get our politics from, on this reading at least, we get our politics, the form of our political thought from a religious arrangement. So, in a sense, politics is very much downstream from religion. Now, on sort of an ethical level, what I prioritize as valid political goals is very much, obviously, largely determined by sort of that strain of Christian ethics that I've been raised with. And there are things that I don't budge on. So I know I was just talking about that whole, like, I'm not really big on the don't let your mind be so open that your brains fall kind of thing. I will add this, though, to that. There are things that are so important that you need to be extremely careful, I think, when you consider challenging them in the first place. You need to be very clear on what you're doing. So, I mean, people do it all the time where they will sort of question the validity of their moral system while they are deliberating about committing a crime or doing something that they think otherwise would be wrong, sleeping with that person or stealing that piece of candy or things like that. So people can take that. This is one of the dangers I think people sometimes point to, is that people can use what they're calling honest skepticism as a license to do things that they have a moral issue with. So there are things like, for example, whether or not killing innocents is ever acceptable, things like that, that I'm willing to argue with, but I won't treat with significant skepticism most of the time. Not in fact, at least. Like I'll entertain a discussion in which these things are treated as like possibilities. Oh, God, I'm doing so badly today. I think what I need to do if I do this again is slower games, like not 30 minutes or 20 minutes, but just like something I can actually just kind of drop and sort of answer questions with, because this is exercise, let me tell you. Oh yeah, Demon Souls is great for the morale, Kyle. Yeah, I mean, yeah, video game fatalism is depressing. Who else have we got? Charlie Adams. Oh, we'll do these in order. So I apologize if I get your name wrong. So Theus Clausen, or Thias Clausen, or Tias Clausen? Clausen. What do you think about the new video from the Distributist? I assume you're referring to the Dr. Horrible sing-along blog one. I didn't watch it. I just don't find his stuff interesting. Like I know it's kind of funny because he's framed my stuff as pretentious, but like I try to do research on my things. I find when I watch him, he's just saying things 90% of the time, and I just can't. I just find his stuff so tedious, and I don't learn anything from them. I'm just sitting there just scratching my head in frustration. Yeah, so if you guys have any more questions, feel free. It's not urgent that you have questions. This was all kind of off the cuff, but I'm probably going to wrap it up soon. I'm getting pretty tired. This is actually a pretty. This takes energy. Oh, let's see if I can get this queen. Oh, Tangy asks favorite YouTuber. That's a good question. Let me think about that. I've kind of gone away from getting my my news from YouTubers and things like that. But let me look at my subscription list and let's see. Not my favorite YouTuber, but Vosh is actually growing on me a little bit. I still have a lot of issues with him, but from what I've seen, like he seems to be actually fairly real in a lot of ways. Now, again, I do have serious issues with him. In particular, one that I mentioned in one of my critiques of him. And I think he's gotten a little bit better recently, but I think generally his abrasive attitude towards a lot of his political opponents is unwise. But I mean, he's gotten a bit better. It's who even knows, right? Like I used to like the Distributist and things like that, and I clearly had some serious misperceptions about his personality. So, but yeah, I don't think I really watch anybody anymore. Favorite YouTubers. Oh, Cuck Philosophy is great. Much better than Philosophy Tube. I hate Philosophy Tube so much. It's just like Like his last video just enraged me. It wasn't factually as bad as I thought it was going to be, but it was like, okay, guys, we're going to be talking about something very serious today: anti-Semitism. Meanwhile, he's in drag and treating this like a joke. So I don't get the mix of hand wringing and I don't get the mix of hand wringing and sort of this foppish. I don't even know what to call it. It's just so tedious. Like either take something seriously or don't. You know. Philosophy Tube is a narcissist. I think that's what bothers me about him, right? So like this is a guy who's clearly lived a fairly maybe this is overstepping, but as far as I can determine, this looks like a guy who's lived a fairly sheltered life. You win, man. I can't beat you. Are you guys cool with me just stopping this? This is exhausting. I'll just answer some questions and we'll wrap this up. Yeah, I'm just gonna. No more chess. No more chess. I'm exhausted. Well, do I want to do one more? I'll tell you what. I'll play whoever was waiting next time, and we'll call it there. Right. So, thank you. Good game yourself. That was a terrible game, actually. My playing was awful. I was so distracted, but thank you for coming on. Right. So Philosophy Tube. Yeah. So, like, I just find him insulting. It's like these are really complicated questions with stakes, and you're treating these things as like a theatrical performance, and you're mocking people in the process. Like you're insulting the intelligence of your audience. I really dislike that. I also dislike that his channels it false advertises. He calls himself Philosophy Tube. He doesn't do philosophy most of the time. His philosophy of Antifa was just this weird, weirdly generous gloss of Antifa as like at a structural level, like what it's comprised of. But it wasn't philosophy. It was really just Antifa against fascists. Like, okay, thank you for that. That's helpful. His one on anti-Semitism also had almost no philosophy whatsoever. Now it had writings by philosophers. He has a bit of psychologizing by Jean-Paul Sartre midway through that one, but it's not in and of itself a philosophical text. It's psychoanalysis, and it's not particularly great psychoanalysis either. I just don't like him very much. Cuck philosophy is great. I disagreed with his Marx is not a statist one, but on, I guess, what would be normally esoteric grounds. I didn't really have an issue with the defense he was providing. But yeah. Would I recommend any channels that aren't Marxist? There's not a lot out there. Clifford Bates has some good stuff. It's a little bit rough though. I do disagree with him on a few things. But as a scholar of Aristotle's politics, one of the best I've encountered, and I owe a lot to his books for my own educational trajectory as well. So I would definitely give him a look. Caspian Report is okay, but it's super shallow political theory. There is no such thing as Thucydides' trap. Just throw that out there. What else have we got? Yeah, read books, honestly. Like there's not a lot of good political YouTube out there. I'm just looking through my subscription list to see if I can find anybody else, but here, let me open up YouTube. Let's take a look. I'm trying to check on my phone, it's just too slow. Black Pigeon Speaks is a cesspit. Um, yeah, I'm. If somebody wants to recommend me people, I'm interested, but I don't. It's one of the reasons why I made my channel, is just because there's so little there. Um, God, I used to watch a lot of Sargon. This is embarrassing. Hey, hopefully if Shruggy starts making videos, we'll have more. But yeah. Well, I'm sure there are some good ones somewhere, but I'm not aware of them. But Clifford Bates' channel is worth looking at. He has some interesting stuff there. Do I like Adam Friended and PSA Sitch? I don't know anything about either of those two. I briefly talked to Adam Friended when he wanted me to debate the academic agent, and the academic agent chickened out. So, Bronze Age Pervert, I don't know anything about him. Sorry, I don't really watch that stuff. Right off the top of my head, right off the bat, maybe if you want to describe him briefly for me in a message, that'd be useful. But right off the bat, doesn't sound like something that I would be interested in. What else have we got? But yeah, Caspian Report's got some decent glosses on things. I mean, a lot of these channels, the best that can be hoped for. I mean, really, with video format generally, the best that can be hoped for is it gives you sort of a sense of what's out there. Maybe it points you to some books or whatnot, or thinkers you didn't know existed, and just gives you sort of gives you a starting point. But ultimately, you gotta hit the books. There's just like, look, when I make a 25-minute video, like the one I'm working on right now is a bit of a different story, because I'm condensing about like 400 pages that I've been reading to prepare for this into about between 25 minutes and half an hour. But generally, you can extrapolate from like a paragraph to a 15 to 20-minute video very easily. So like that, like for example, that 10-minute video I did on the Nomos of Satan, that relied on a very small part of the text, very small. Not even an entire book. I think it's a portion of book 2 details Satan's journey from hell through chaos to our universe. So, yeah, you just got to read it for yourself. I'm not a centrist. I'm sorry. 666-888-666-888 asks, "You are a centrist?" ? I'm not a centrist. I'm not. That doesn't mean I'm an anti-centrist. Let's say, like, I'm not an extremist in the usual sense, but being a centrist is not being a neutral position. It's people call themselves a centrist as a polemic against people who take specific stances. So it's a mistake to think of centrism per se as being like a median point between right and left, let's say. It's not. It's assuming it is in itself promoting actions as alternatives to either of these groups. Now, to their credit, I think people who are centrists often are more concerned with things like human life and human freedom than people on the far left and the far right often are. Not universally, though, and disturbingly, a lot of people use their centrism as a cover for other things. So, like if you're in a situation where there is tremendous injustice going on, being a centrist or a sort of conservative in this middling sense isn't really taking a neutral stance. It's saying allow the current situation to perpetuate because solutions to end it are scary. Or potential. Now, that's just one construal. There are people who say that the solutions on offer are immoral, and I think that's something serious. So I'm not against centrists, quote unquote, but we need to understand what we're doing when we're calling people centrist. We're not saying they're in between. It's the term third position is taken, but it is a third stance relative to left and right. It's not. Yeah. So no, I'm not a centrist because I'm not a proponent of the status quo or of a median between extremist positions on the left or the right. I don't know if that's satisfying at all, but yeah. What have we got here? The Last Man, you say that Thucydides' trap doesn't exist. Does that mean Graham Allison is full of shit? I don't know if he's full of shit, but insofar as he's talking about Thucydides' trap, he is. And there's an excellent essay online that actually talks about this. I don't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but basically, Allison's argument relies on a mistranslation of Thucydides. It relies on a mistranslation of Thucydides that ascribes the Lacedaemonian reaction to Athens growing power. And then he analogizes power to military technology. But that's not what the original text says. A more proper translation is Athens growing greatness, which is different. It was a combination of the stature and its influence over its stature culturally and politically and whatnot, and its sort of hegemonic control over an increasing number of other cities, of other polises. And so the reaction was against an actually expansionist power. It wasn't against, well, Athens is going to eventually have the technology to beat us. There's no analogy there. It's Athens was in fact creeping along and conquering the world. So there's no analogy to modern China. We aren't in a situation where China's growing power is necessarily going to force us into war with China. Now, that being said, China's creeping attempts to gain hegemonic control or outright annex its neighboring states, or places that are sort of in a gray area like Hong Kong, Taiwan, what have you, that could very well result in armed conflict. That could draw on the larger world. But to make an analogy to Thucydides simply is naive and simplistic. It's lazy, and that describes a lot of international relations theory. Unfortunately, it assumes certain things out of convenience. It assumes, for example, well, I won't go too far into it here, but I am working on one of my next projects is going to be a critique of international relations. I don't know when that's going to happen, but generally, a problem with a lot of modern political science today is that it unreflectively takes for granted the categories it uses. So the idea of the modern state, the Weberian definition. I'm going to be challenging that actually in the video I'm working on today and tomorrow, because the Weberian definition of the state, while it holds, is not an accurate description of the state until the 20th century. But I'll go into more detail on that in my video, which I'm hoping will be out tomorrow. I am going to be working on it after I close the stream today, all day today and all day tomorrow until it's out. So it should be done. If it takes more than 2 days to do, that's kind of ridiculous. I'm going to say let's take a 2-minute intermission, and I will be right back, just because I've been drinking a massive quantity of tea. So, one moment. Oh, and keep asking questions, guys, while I'm gone. It won't be long. All right, I'm back. Sorry about that, guys. Unfortunately, I am not yet a god who doesn't need to do certain things. So, what have we got? Mike asks, what do I think about George Orwell? He taught me how propaganda works and the power of symbolism. I think Orwell was a brilliant writer. I don't want to ramble too much about Orwell, but here's something. One thing I really like about 1984 is that it really is an effective critique of sort of tendencies in how we in sort of modern political culture, and you see a lot of people on the right, like you saw this meme like back from when Sargon was a big thing. I guess he still is a big thing, but back when Sargon was sort of growing. 1984 was a warning, not an instruction manual. And I mean, yeah, in a sense, 1984 was a warning, but the grand irony of this, of course, is that the incessant use of memes by the right and the reduction of, I mean, think about what Newspeak is. Newspeak is a simplification of, a reduction in the number of words in our lexicons, so that the number of dissident thoughts gradually shrinks with it. And one thing I've observed with, and one of my major problems with a lot of the right wing right now, is that a lot of them have simply reflexive responses to things that don't admit of any kind of careful scrutiny or analysis. Yeah, I'm a bit off my game with this, but I mean, no, I think Orwell's great. I think he's inappropriately claimed for the right or for anti-SJWs or what have you, but I think he's absolutely worth reading and thinking about. I would not treat him as a partisan in any particular debate. I think his critique is more or less universal. Do I think that immortality can be achieved? Nope. Full stop. Nope. Not that I have any particular ill wishes towards the man, but I look forward to the day that Kurzweil dies. Carl asks, a critique of international relations. Are you going Kantian? No, I'm not. In fact, I think sort of a two. I think a lot of international relations theorists are too ready to accept sort of political modes of thought that originate with Kant. But I won't go into detail on that here, mostly because I like to have my thoughts sort of collected before I go into depth in these things. I can have a bit of a scattered brain sometimes, so what else have we got? God, I'm so tired today. Any more questions? Anything that I missed? I guess I could go into detail on the immortality question. Did I miss anybody? I don't think I did. If anybody has any questions, I think we'll wrap it up in about 15 minutes, just because it's an hour and 40 minutes now, and I'm super exhausted. Yeah. So okay, I'll do the immortality question. Not my area at all, so I actually have no idea about this really. But I mean, what do we mean by that? Well, I think generally we mean just sort of keeping your conscious experience going. I don't think anybody thinks that we can keep a single human body, like from the brain down, actually functioning and preserved indefinitely. But I mean, here's a question: Is mortality a necessary part of being human? Now, obviously, there's something a little bit strange about asking this if I am, in fact, of a Christian persuasion, since the assumption of the Christian narrative, let's say, or the Judeo-Christian narrative, is that mortality is itself an unnatural state of humanity that human beings came into as a result of a bad decision. Okay, but like human beings as we are now, like we can think of how we would become very twisted if we actually did manage to make ourselves last for a very long time. A lot of our, like, think about what motivates us to sort of take on really hard challenges, like space flight or philosophy or science or art or things like that. Why don't we just spend all of our time just sort of satiating our bodily needs and desires and things like that? Why do we actually go out of our way and take pains to do these sort of great making things? Well, one of the major reasons is that we don't have endless time. So we don't have the excuse of saying, we'll just do it tomorrow, because eventually you run out of tomorrows. So I'm not sure immortality would be good for us, which is not the same thing as saying that death is good for us either. But it's practically, I don't think it's really feasible. I think when you look at what the people who are, it's certainly not going to be feasible in our lifetime in any meaningful sense. When you look at what people like Kurzweil are doing, they're trying to like keep themselves alive till they can be uploaded to a computer. It's like, what does that even mean? Right? Like, it wouldn't even, like, even assuming that we had the capacity to perfectly imitate someone's personality onto a device, and that's a terrifying prospect, because I mean, imagine being within that device yourself. Like, this thing wouldn't have the same limitations as the human body. So, for example, if a human being under torture will eventually die from stress, if nothing else, computer maybe won't do that. I mean, here's a question. Well, like the angels in hell and Paradise Lost are still immortal. That's why they burn forever. It's not necessarily a good thing. Sorry for that colorful image. But yeah, as well, like, if you could upload yourself to a computer, that wouldn't be you. So, I mean, maybe that doesn't matter to you. Like, maybe you sort of look on with indifference. What happens to that thing, and what you're concerned with is that something sort of identified with you in some specific capacity continues to have activity in the world. And I mean, maybe, but like, don't we sort of do that with like books and with children and with art? Like, we imprint ourselves on the world by doing things that matter and that influence the activities of other people. It doesn't seem to me that this is doing anything more than that, except in a very specific way, and maybe not in a very useful way ultimately. Lux Logos asks, lately I've gotten stale on politics because it's the same old stories and same old songs. Have you ever felt the same? President Sunday, how can one get back into it? Depends on what you mean by politics, right? Like, I do political theory, which never really gets old because you're always learning these really fantastically new things. Now, curiously enough, one of the biggest things that I've been focusing on for the last little while is how political theory as a category of thing is, in many respects, the result of fetishizing a specific cultural artifact, namely the post-Kleistonian, the polis in Athens post-Cleisthenes. So we get all of our political categories today from that. The very concept of the political as a distinct domain emerges from the the identification of the citizens with the polis itself over their older tribal affiliations that used to be the case before Cleisthenes broke up the old tribes and reformed the people into different demois. But I mean, just for generally getting stale on things, theoretical work is generally very dry. It's very dry, and it takes most of its impetus from poetical literature. Where Hobbes, for example, is interesting or riveting or epic, let's say, is where he's directly invoking poetic imagery, right? So it's not just that he's giving you an outline of how the state works. That's boring as all hell. He's giving you an outline of how the state works, and then he's explaining to you how this is a leviathan. And he means that in a very specific sense. It doesn't, and not in a boring sense either. He means like this thing is a monster. It is a god, let's say. So that's interesting. Like what I do when I've got a few strategies for keeping myself interested in political theory, so I can keep on sort of hammering away at it. One of them is I try to sort of surround myself with fictional material or poetic material that sort of re-enchants what I'm doing for me. So I'll read Thomas Hobbes in the sort of while having a game of Dead Space going or things like that. Or the Talos Principle is really good if you want to just get into sort of a zone for reading sort of hard philosophy, because it kind of glamorizes that. Another thing is just read poetry, by which I don't mean like cute poems like those things with the sunflower on them that you can buy from Walmart. I mean, like Rilke is fantastic. Who else? I mean, if you haven't read the Odyssey and the Iliad, they're deeply enjoyable. Greek plays are fantastic. That's not a play; that's an epic poem. But Greek poetry generally, the Iliad and the Odyssey, and Sophocles' Theban plays are genuinely a joy to read. They are not boring at all. And yeah, I find that really helps. It also, they're good for you psychologically, and they also give you a lot of rhetorical power, I think. Which, I mean, given my meandering here, is sort of rich to say, but I think being able to draw upon these images can do a lot for your writing, can do a lot for your speech. So yeah, I think it's poetry and fiction. Like I don't understand these people who neglect these things as if they have no importance. All of our greatest political theorists were astute readers of the Bible, of poetry, of history, what have you. So definitely don't limit yourself to political theory. Yeah, so that's my rough response to that. Have I looked into the computational theory of mind? Jack Fleck asks that. I have not, because I'm not in psychology, but Shruggy has very much looked into the computational theory of mind. He is very critical of it. So I should have him on and we should talk about that at some point. What else have we got here? What is your opinion on Oswald Spengler? The number guy asks that. Or if you're not a guy, I apologize. What is my opinion on Oswald Spengler? I haven't read Spengler in depth. That being said, as I may touch on in the video I'm doing right now, Spengler comes about... Spengler's whole scheme, as I understand it, relies upon an identification or sort of an equivocation. Let me see how to put this. His concept of cultures sort of relies on a territorialization of communities that only really make sense post 20th century. So I don't like how he ascribes it backwards in history. I really shouldn't say too much on him because I haven't read him in depth, and I don't find him compelling at all. And I haven't found the people who find him compelling particularly impressive either. So that's a major factor too. There's so much to read. There's so much I haven't read. There's so much that I have to spend time on, and it takes a long time to read things well. So when I choose to go and read something completely out of left field, like Spengler, I need to be really impressed by something that I've seen somebody do with Spengler, so I can sort of justify the time investment. Because The Last Man asks, are you planning on reading any Pareto or Mosca in the future? Maybe. But if I was to stop and start reading through Spengler's Decline of the West, like, that's a long book that I would be spending a lot of time on, and I would not be reading Pareto or Mosca. So, right, it's a trade-off. It takes time to do these things. Some of these books take months to read properly by themselves, and you do the math. Like, that's only 12 books a month if you take a month for a book. I try not to, but some of these are just they're slow. So, yeah. But yeah, I know Professor Bates really wants to talk about Burnham more. So I think that's probably going to be my major exposure to Pareto and Mosca, for the short term at least. But I would like to actually sort of get into them at some point. But again, it's so far out of left field from what I'm doing. Sorry, so far afield from what I'm doing. It's just hard to find time for these things. Do I like Buddhism? I don't dislike Buddhism. I'm not particularly impressed by. I can't think of any Buddhists I'm particularly interested in. I think there's interesting things about it. I did take a course in university where we read on sort of Eastern religions, which is a terrible, terrible name, by the way, but I'm not going to get into that here. On Eastern religions, and we had a Buddhist section, and we read 2 books. We read What the Buddha Taught and What the Buddha Never Taught. And there were some things in What the Buddha Never Taught that I found absolutely gruesome. One of which I'll describe here briefly, I found disgusting. So, Shruggy wants to come on and talk about the computational theory of mind, just as I want to get off. Thank you for that, Shruggy. I'll have him on in a moment. Maybe I'll just have him on now. But yeah, if you don't like disturbing, if you have a sensitive stomach, stop listening now for a moment. But basically, one of the things it accounted for was this I forgot the name of him, but this guy in this book who wrote What the Buddha Never Taught goes to this community of monks, and he notices a skeleton on the wall of one of their dwellings, and it's explained to him that the skeleton is actually the corpse of one of the monks' wives, who he, as sort of an exercise in, I don't know, getting out of his own head or something, flayed down to the bone after she died, which I found absolutely disgusting. So, now that of course that's a very unusual manifestation of Buddhism. But Buddhism in general isn't the nice, comfy, meditate and go to yoga once a week thing that we see here in North America or in the English speaking world. It's very complex, has a lot of variety, and a lot of it is very unpalatable to people who have a lot of the values that I have. So I wouldn't say I like it. I do find it interesting, but I'm definitely not at risk of becoming a Buddhist anytime soon. And I apologize if that's a really flippant gloss of it, but it hasn't occupied a lot of my attention, so I've got a small range of things to draw on. Slumbertrack asks, are you a fan of Lord of the Rings, Beowulf? I know Beowulf is kind of an old one, but damn if epic poems are amazingly written. Yeah, I am. Very much so. I quite like Lord of the Rings. I don't like when people critique it as being slow because of like the songs and everything. Like as a child, when I first got into it, that was frustrating. But it's a mistake to view The Lord of the Rings, I think, as a novel in the sense of like Game of Thrones or something. It's not a novel. It's meant to be like an epic poem. You're supposed to read it in small bits. Like think of these bits as like I don't know, like the roster of ships, the infamous roster of the ships in the second book of the Iliad. Very tedious if you just want the plot to move along. But there's significance to it, right? Like it connects to the different families of Athens, whatever. Anyways, that's blabbing on. No, I like Lord of the Rings very much. I think it's poetically gorgeous and imagistically magnificent book. So yeah, I like it. And Beowulf is really good. I have the Seamus Heaney translation, which I have yet to read. I did read one translation in high school that I can't remember, but I still remember my AP literature teacher, who would always ask us at the beginning of every class, what is the one thing that can destroy Herod? It's fire. Herod is Hrothgar's sort of longhouse or something. I missed your question. Cameron, what's your question? Restate it for me. I'm going up and I'm trying to find it, but I can't see it. Here, I'm going to get Shruggy on. He was going to come on earlier, but apparently he had a meeting of some kind, so I'm glad that he's here. But yeah, ask me your question again there, Cameron. What have we got here? Okay, let's look at some more questions. Who are the most overrated thinkers of our time? Where even to begin? Oh, here we go. We got Shruggy on. One moment. Maybe he'll want to weigh in on this. Hi, Shruggy. How are you doing?
Hello. Test, test, test. Can you hear me?
You are here. You are on. You are live.
Hi. Wow. Hello, audience. Somebody asked about the computational theory of mind. I was half paying attention for the last 10 minutes. So,
but then just to sort of pursuant to that, just to start with, maybe you'll have something to say to this question that Jack Fleck just asked. Who are the most overrated thinkers of our time?
Okay, sorry, I missed that because I could hear two versions of the stream and it was absolutely scrambling my attention.
Oh, no worries.
Okay, sorry, audience.
Sorry.
Please repeat.
Jack Fleck, who asked the question, have you looked into computational theory of mind, also asked, who are the most overrated thinkers of our time?
Oh, I have more to say about the computational theory of mind question. Because, I don't know, are we in a position where we can evaluate that? Overrated thinkers of our time.
Well, maybe, okay. How about this? Which thinkers annoy you the most?
Okay, well, I don't like Steven Pinker. I don't like if you've sold, if you're on the New York Times bestsellers list, you're probably acclaimed more than you should be. That was a very broad stroke. But,
Yuval Noah Harari.
Oh, I read Homo Deus and 21 Lessons.
How was 21 Lessons?
It was his next one. Sorry?
I know you liked Homo Deus. How was 21 Lessons?
It was like more popular version of the same thing. Well, no, not really. It wasn't actually. That's the funny thing, is it wasn't actually a recast of the same thing. It just amounted to being a recast of the same thing. I don't know. Homo Deus was good. Sapiens was probably good because the best part of Homo Deus was apparently just kind of rehashing Sapiens. I don't know. I feel like when we talked about it first, I was like, wow, this guy's really great. He's teaching me a lot. And I don't know. I think you characterized him as kind of middle-brow or something.
Sorry.
Probably true. No. I'm not offended. I'm not a historian. What does he? Yeah, he's a historian. I'm not. So yeah, I've said this before. Like when you're first exposed to halfway good ideas, even if it's just somebody else repeating them, it's going to blow your mind. So that was the state I was in. But okay, why were people talking about computational theory of mind? I missed that.
That came completely out of nowhere. That was just Jack Fleck asking that question out of nowhere. And I said I didn't really have. Well, you were there, obviously, so you heard. but I don't have strong opinions on that. I don't really buy into it, just sort of intuitively. But maybe you'd have something to say about that.
Yeah, I was just wondering what the context for that was, like why that would come up.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I mean, computational theory of mind. Basically, the idea is that um, okay, so we have kind of a I just hate all of the terms in this discipline. There's this thing people call folk psychology. Basically, anytime you talk about other people's mental states, another piece of jargon. Anytime you talk about people's beliefs, what they want, what they're feeling, what their emotions are, what they're trying to do, that kind of language. Um, the way that people are framing it now, and it's dumb, but I'm going to say it, is you're engaging in something called folk psychology, which means you're just basically doing the ordinary sort of attribution of, again, mental states. I'm going to have to hash that out to other people that we normally do to understand other people, to explain why they did what they did, even to predict what they're going to do in the future, and also to understand, what it's like to be them right now. So that's folk psychology. So
Oh yeah, hang
computational
on.
theory of
Sorry,
mind. Sorry.
Shorty, just 1 second. So for context, this didn't even click in my head, but Lily Voigtooth just pointed out that we were previously talking about immortality. Can we achieve immortality? Things like
Oh,
that.
okay. Yeah.
And Ray Kurzweil and mind uploading and stuff.
Okay. All right, that's some context. Okay. Yeah. All right. So I just gave a crappy rendition of folk psychology. Computational theory of mind is a theory about how that works, which is highly popular. In some variant, it still represents dominant approaches in the cognitive sciences, but it's a theory of the mechanism behind all of these folk psychological states that we are so used to attributing to other people and using to understand other people. So basically, the idea is that the mind is some kind of computational system, and because there are all of these features of mental states, like you can talk about their coherence, right? So whether they're consistent with each other, whether they're instrumentally rational, so like whether what somebody is doing conduces to some goal or not. But these sorts of judgments of coherence, people thought that one way to account for that would be if you had like a computational system which had some kind of syntax, which had kind of rules by way of which you could combine symbols um, according to some grammar or some sort of ordering. Anyways, people thought that the mind was like a computer, and they thought that these mental states, like beliefs, had representational contents. See, do you see all this jargon? It's disgusting. Um, uh, yeah, they
Yeah.
thought, okay, so things like beliefs have representational contents. So, like, the sky is blue. So that's like a sentence. You've got a subject, you've got a predicate. Um, it's the sort of stuff you can formalize really easily. And it's the sort of thing you could write algorithms to sort of carry out and implement on a computational system very easily. But basically, yeah, when computing hardware came out, people thought that there were similarities in the ways that we think and talk, and the ways that people understand computers work. So they thought that computers could be, well, first of all, they thought that maybe the mind is a computer, maybe it is a computational system. And then, of course, artificial intelligence was the idea. I mean, historically, it was the idea that you could use these computing machines to figure out, what the representations that the brain uses are encoded like, and what the algorithms that operate them are. And you want to give a description of how the mind is working in computational terms. So, anyways, I hope that wasn't too abysmal of an explanation, but yeah,
I think that was good.
yeah.
Do you want to just answer some questions with me there, Shruggy? I'm about to clock out. I'm so exhausted today, and I was
Yeah,
trying
sure.
to I was trying to multitask with chess and this earlier, and it wiped me out so much. It was fun, but it's just, oh my god, I'm just going back and forth and answering questions while trying to figure out what you're going to do in chess. So I wasn't playing well, and I wasn't answering questions well either. So it may have been a miscalculation, but yeah. So number guy, that's what I'm calling you from now on, asks, Should we revive old European religions and add some new things on them?
What, which are, why? And which old European religions? And why do we want to revive them?
I want to say no. At the very least, I see no particular impetus to do so.
Like, is
Uh,
there like a reason for like what? Why are we sitting around asking this question?
that's
Sorry,
right.
I'm not saying your question is a bad question.
I don't know.
Um,
Well, I mean,
I just find
if I had to guess, I mean, I think it has to do like you see this in certain sort of pan-European. I hope that's an appropriate term. Uh, Sort of pan-European movements want to sort of extricate themselves from the sort of cultural hegemony, let's say, of Palestinian religions like Christianity or things like that. And one of the ways in which has been done by some people, or it's been attempted, has been to sort of revitalize sort of older pagan religions in Europe. Here's the problem right off the bat that my inner anthropologist is picking up on. You're construing these things as European religions, as if this is an alternative among peers to sort of Christianity or to what have you. And the problem is that the very concept of a world religion that we have today that you're using to categorize that is itself parasitical on the form of modern Christianity. So,
well, what would this be? What like? I find it interesting that this is a question that's being asked. Like,
yeah.
what would be the purpose of this? Like to galvanize some identity group, to give them more of a sense of, I don't know, uh, in-group unity and
Well, how about this? Like, let's say, like, you're familiar with sort of the reactionary Catholic crowd, right?
sure.
Well, what if you have those inclinations, but you don't want to be Catholic?
Then you're really confused. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm
Essentially,
so
yeah.
terrible. Um, but really, like that's like keeping only the window dressings. That's keeping only the things that don't matter. The way I look at it, I'm just
No, I think
asking.
I agree with you. Just by way of answering the what purpose would it serve? Why are we asking the question? That's my inference. If I wish you had a name that I could say more easily, but if number person wants to provide clarification, that would be fantastic. Um, yeah. So, what are you? What's new and exciting in your life, Shruggy?
Oh, um, yeah, I'm really busy. I've got a lot of projects going on at once. Um, but that can sometimes be conditions for me coming on your stream more because sometimes you just really need to procrastinate. But yeah, I'm trying to get up to speed on this topic of attention. I'm trying to work on kind of a different framework for understanding what attention is. Um, I'm doing some work on split brain phenomena, uh, trying to come up with an interpretation of the behavior that subjects show when their corpus callosum is severed, some of the weird effects there. I'm working on my first publication. I'll not elaborate on that. Um, and yeah, so I'm trying to be productive. That's my answer.
Oh, so here's a question you might have something to say on, Shruggy. So, what is your opinion on Christian orthodoxy?
Well, what orthodoxy? Okay, do we mean this in a very sort of generic way?
Well, let's take the
Mhm.
let's take the sentence naively. Like let's actually analyze it on its own merits. So, just orthodoxy of a Christian or orthodoxy within Christianity, period. Let's say. Do we want to specify like enforced orthodoxy?
Uh, I I mean, I guess the idea is just okay. So just the idea that there is a common core of, you know, basic foundational identifying or essential beliefs or, you know, doctrines that sort of make one a Christian, and which you should, if you're hoping to be a Christian, these are things that you would want to hold yourself at least pretty strongly accountable to, um, just because they represent, you know, what the sort of everyone who ever had any kind of authority in your tradition had a consensus about these things. And so that's like prima facie, that's a good reason to take them seriously, I guess. Um, do I think that's good? Do I think that makes sense? I think the way I described it made it sound sensible and renders it, yeah, I think, I mean, it's good to be somewhat rooted. It's good to regard, it's good to not be like a total anarchist who just decides what you believe based on whatever you feel, whatever you like, whatever you don't like. You should listen to the way that the tradition unfolded. Partly also because the way the tradition unfolded conditions the way you think, anyways. And so this is how you're going to understand where you're coming from, even right now. It even conditions the options that are not Christian orthodoxy in our culture. So, you'd sort of do double duty in spending time getting to know what the orthodox positions were, what the debates were in which the various doctrines were formulated first and came to take on the status they did. Of course, this all kind of gets very complicated if you're. I mean, it's more straightforward if you're a Catholic because you can just say, yeah, there's this monolithic Christian tradition. Here it is, and then there's a bunch of other confused people. But if you're not a Catholic, then it's a little bit less straightforward. Because there are diverging voices, and so that's either a blessing or a curse, right? It's a curse if you're looking for like the answer right now. It's kind of I don't know, like, I guess it's also a blessing if you would have just stuck with whatever whatever you're dogmatically required to stick to, and then not investigated anything because of it, and then not like really challenged anything you're thinking right now because of it. So, I mean, I guess not having as obvious of a monolithic set of strictures has some sort of salutary effects on you intellectually, but also it can leave you feeling kind of insecure and confused. And like, what do you do with a plurality of interpretative options? It's harder. So it's harder, and it makes you hardier for better or worse. Is it better or worse? I don't know, but that's.
Well, it makes me think of like back when I was considering Catholicism, and you were too. Like the issues we ran into. One of the merits of it was that there was an enforced orthodoxy, which meant that people were sort of kept on reservation, so to speak. So you didn't have a proliferation of weird little opportunistic cults popping up all over the place. However, you were more or less being required to assent to a long series of doctrines that there's no way you had time to actually fully consider, that we had no reason to think that the church itself had fully considered in many respects. And it was like, okay, here's one potential problem with orthodoxy as sort of a normative principle, is that it's essentially giving up your rational capacity to someone else, probably on fairly shoddy grounds.
Well, yeah, I mean, in Catholicism, heresy is a sin. It's actually a very serious sin. So, I mean, the condition, of course, is that you have to know what you're affirming and what you're believing, and know that that is not the official Catholic position. Because, if you're just ignorant, if you're just ignorant, you're not as culpable. But if you know that, if you understand what the Catholic position is, and you're a Catholic and you disagree, you have like a principal disagreement with something, or you will not, assent to what the church teaches because the church teaches it. That's a mortal sin. That's in the Catholic tradition. I think, I don't know.
So the person who asked the question originally clarified. So by orthodoxy, he means Eastern Orthodox Christianity.
Oh,
Sorry.
that's a completely different question. Yeah, that is the strain of Christianity I know the least about, to be honest.
Same here. I think it's because largely my interest in anything of that sort as an alternative to Catholicism, let's say, was sort of exhausted when I lost interest in Catholicism. So I just haven't had a reason to look into it that deeply. I at some point I would like to. I am very interested in the study of religions generally. It's just sort of beyond any sort of personal investment. So it's definitely a blank spot that shouldn't be there. But there's too much. There's too much stuff to read. There's too much stuff to know. I'm still in my 20s, so it's like, cut me some slack here. I'm catching up. Do my best. Last man asks, was Hitchens right when he called the Catholic Church totalitarian? No, not even close. It is authoritarian, absolutely, but that's something very different. Generally speaking, totalitarianism, I mean, it's not as if it's like a technical term with a specific meaning, but generally what's being invoked is the sort of forced interference by the state into every aspect of the lives of the people, into regulating their lives. And the state has sort of a total, it's a total state of the state, where there is nothing within society that is not the same. I mean, in a sense, like the modern state period, by which I mean the modern state sort of in the 20th century and onwards is sort of inherently totalitarian, and it's simply a question of the degree to which the executive power is sort of able to exert itself in odious ways that makes us call a state totalitarian or not. Because there isn't structurally anything actually keeping any state, even in the Western democracies, we all well know, being on the internet for as long as we have been, that prevents them from exerting exactly the same kind of, in fact, authoritarian, to oppress you in as much, if not more so, total ways than whatever happened in the Soviet Union or what have you. The fact that we don't seems to be beside the point to whether or not the state is of such a kind that it can or will do this eventually. That was a really incoherent and meandering sentence. I apologize for that, but no, the Catholic Church isn't like that at all. It's authoritarian. I no doubt there are Catholics who are overbearing to an unhealthy degree, but I don't think the Catholic Church is totalitarian as such. I'm probably going to wrap it up. I think we've been here for almost 2 hours and 20 minutes. I know you haven't been, Shruggy. But I think we'll probably wrap it up. If anybody had any questions that I missed, let me know quickly, and we'll try to address them before I call it. Because I would like to actually get to work on this other video that's now a couple weeks late. So I'm just scrolling up here. What else have we got? Right. So, and Jelma points out, like, there's something standing in the way of totalitarianism, which is an independent judiciary. Sure. Yeah, fine. But I mean, the judiciary is still considered a part of the state, I believe. It's still a part of government. So it's not entirely clear to me that, I mean, that definitely would be a hindrance towards any regime from sort of acting in an overly controlling manner, but it doesn't actually by itself preclude the state from becoming totalitarian in the sense of interfering in any part of human life, because the judiciary could decide to become complicit with the executive. So, any good ideas? Oh, this is weird. Any good ideas for a story where it can only use the dreams of the protagonist? Well, I mean, you're in one right now. Like, none of you guys exist as you should know by this point. You were all figments of my imagination. I'm talking myself in the corner. The internet is a fiction. It doesn't exist. Shrug is going to take this harder than you, I'm sure.
Yeah, ouch.
Oh, Lily Voigtooth asks, what are my thoughts on George Bataille? I haven't read George Bataille, so I don't have any thoughts, unfortunately, but that's on the list. So yeah, so I think we'll call it at this point. It's been almost 2.5 hours, which is I think actually my longest stream, and it's just been me. So thank you everyone for coming on. Thank you Shuggy for joining me at the end, and thanks to I think 3 of you played me on chess very badly. Thanks for putting up with that. But yeah, thanks very much, guys, and take care.
Enjoy your lives.
Cherish the small things.